Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today it is Season 1, Episode 7, Breakdown, starring Joseph Cotten as William. And this is an excellent episode of the show. It was directed by Alfred Hitchcock himself, and he put some little touches into this episode that really make it as good as it is. This is also a very unique episode. I don't think there's another episode really quite like this one, and it's also really effective with an excellent performance from Joseph Cotten. So we start with our main character, William, and he's talking about his business, and then he gets a phone call, and it's from an employee that is being let go, and the man is trying to plead with William that he wants to keep his job, and the guy is really upset, which is understandable, and William shows no sympathy for this guy at all. The guy basically cries and gets upset, and William hangs up on him, and he's talking with another man who's there about emotions, and the other man tells him sometimes getting out emotions is good, but William's not really buying this. He just thinks the man who was fired overreacted, and this will be very significant as the episode goes on. So William's driving back home, I believe it is, and he gets in an accident basically, and from this point on he becomes a narrator the rest of the episode. I'm not going to go over every single thing he says or his reactions because it's something you really need to see for yourself, and you definitely should because it's excellent. But I will say this was a very smart move because it lets us get some insight into the character even though he can't move. So basically the setup is that William is still alive, but he figures out that he's paralyzed, and he describes a little bit how he feels, and this is very effective. And he does things like question if he can hear and things like that, something that would seem like a natural reaction, and he's waiting for someone to come, and he's worried because obviously he's helpless and doesn't know if anyone will or not. So eventually 3 men do come, and William wonders what they're doing. It's taking them a long time to help them. Then he figures out they came to basically just take everything out of his car for themselves, basically to steal all the stuff. So this upsets him naturally, and eventually 2 more men come, and they wanted the same thing, but they realize they're too late, and William's getting more and more upset. It's a slow build. It's very effective with good direction from Hitchcock. And the men pretty much argue about whether he's alive or not. They ultimately come to the conclusion that he's passed away, and we find out that they are prisoners, and they've come to take his clothes so that obviously they don't have their prison uniforms on. This angers William a lot, which is very understandable. So he's going through a lot of different emotions right now. And when they leave, he said he oddly misses them because he's lonely, which is kind of interesting as well. And it's also becoming very silent. And then he starts worrying about other things, like if somebody does come, will they know he's alive or not? But he's saying he can't let his emotions get the best of him, and he needs to remain calm. So this is an inner struggle basically throughout the rest of the episode. We also find out at this point that William can move his finger, and Hitchcock, being the kind of director he is, will play with this a few times in the rest of the episode. So eventually a sheriff comes with some men, and they find William, and his finger is moving, but they don't notice it, and Hitchcock actually shows us the finger moving, so it can frustrate us more as an audience, as he would do. So nobody notices this, and William is getting even more frustrated. So eventually they take his body to the morgue, which probably isn't a good thing. And as they're wheeling him in, he's still tapping his finger, but the wheels are making a lot of noise on the stretcher he's being wheeled in. So of course they can't hear the tapping. So the men leave, and William talks about how he's going to be alone all night, and it's dark, and there's a sheet over his head, and things like that. So we go to the next day, and we know this because the screen gets a lot lighter. Very clever direction again. And William's having a lot of thoughts, and eventually they do lift the sheet, and now he's finding out his finger won't tap when it could have helped him the most because there's no other noise, and eventually he comes to the conclusion that he's lying on his finger, so he has to basically show these men he's alive in some other way. And eventually what happens is tears start to come down his face. William is now crying, and the men notice this, so his emotion that he talked about at the beginning, not wanting to use, is actually what saved him. So an interesting episode, and the character changes little by little. It's very realistic. It doesn't feel sudden or forced. So overall, I think Breakdown takes what seems like a simple premise and adds some complexity to it, and is well worth seeing. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. definitely a must-see episode for fans of the show, and definitely an episode that I think others could check out as well and get something out of it on its own. So 4.5 out of 5 for Breakdown, and as always, thanks for watching.